All right, and let me put you here in the window because I love seeing people while I'm doing the presentation as well. All right, so empowering teachers through critical AI literacy. Why did I choose this title? When we're informed and when mainly as educators, as teachers, where we influence so many people around us, when we have the literacy about whatever we are teaching or about many things that impact us in the world, of course, we are more empowered to empower our learners as well. So these two words, empowering and being critical, asking questions about the world around us, are very important and dear to me. And I think that are critical and very important and relevant when we're talking about AI. So we need, as teachers and educators, to be able to see AI in our daily life. And that's the starting point of asking questions about it. So if we don't see it, we won't don't ask questions. But the minute it becomes visible, we should, and we should train the capacity as well to ask questions about what is going on, how this technology works, how does it impact me? So this is the starting point that we also can go on a journey of learning. This has been something, as I think Nathan was saying, I mean, it's so much to put our head around. So many things have been happening in these last almost 3 years of generative AI. That's been so impactful in education and in the world, that being able to see that, understand the impact in question, and learn along the way is absolutely a fundamental process, and it's only done together. So it's really nice to be here today together because the learning process is never alone. And for us to understand, what do I understand about what is AI literacy? Because there are many definitions, and I chose this one to bring to you. That actually was one that fits the one I used before, but it was published very recently, I think last week, on the new proposed AI literacy framework, which you have the link there. We'll be talking about it along the journey of this presentation as well, which brings this complete idea that literacy is having knowledge, skills, attitudes, right? But it's something that all of this, all these knowledge, skills, and attitudes that prepare us to lead in a world that is influenced by AI. So it enables learners to engage, to create, to manage, design, while critically evaluating the benefits and the risks of its implications. For me, it's very important that we always think of literacy not only about information that comes outside in to our heads and to our minds, but also something that afterwards comes out through our actions and through our creations with this technology. That's why I love this definition. Of course, the word critical appears here. And why choose critical? Why is it called critical? Because it means asking better questions, right? Before looking for alternatives before we press the button accept, like we do many times when we use tools and we just, go forward, forward, forward. Yes, yes, yes. We don't read the terms, we don't question. But if there's a moment in time where we need to stop doing that, or at least start exercising, asking questions and looking at what's around before accepting, we should. That's very important. So I brought this quote from a team leader and scientific researcher from um, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. And Romina said that the EU AI Act reminds us that AI literacy is key for educators as they empower students to navigate through the benefits and risks of AI. So when we are prioritizing, we are empowering, again, the idea of empowering the generation of students with critical thinking and informed decision-making skills that tap into the potential of this technology and that's helping the world thrive very quickly. So again, we come always information and action. This is the impact that AI has on our lives, and that's why it's important and it is critical. And the question I ask myself many times and ask educators I have conversations with, as you here today, or other people interested in AI in education, is if I don't understand AI, how can I decide how to use it? So for me, the starting point of the conversation around AI literacy is always this. What is AI? Having that conversation? Is it intelligent? Is it a machine that already is smarter or more intelligent than a human? And clarify. No, AI is a simulation of AI intelligence through a machine. It's a machine trained to simulate a human brain with all the limitations that the machine has. So it's not perfect at doing that. And there are different models, AI models, this meaning different sets of rules of that allow the machine to work in a certain way, to analyze data and make predictions, and to simulate the way we think. So AI is very much predictions based on past trends. And when we say past trends, we're talking about the data that feeds the models, and the data that feeds the model already exists in the past. It was created by us humans. And so that's why it's based in the past. It's past knowledge that the machine processes, and then we generate either content or the machine, and we use it to build our own knowledge as well. But the machine doesn't have what is crucial to a human being, which is critical thinking. It follows instructions. It can ask different questions if you instruct it to, if you prompt it to, but it does not have that spontaneously, and it does not have emotions. It does not have um, yeah, critical thinking, emotions, creativity. It does not have. Those are human characteristics. It can simulate all of them. Of course, we're talking about the data and how and what it means, the impact it has on the AI model. You know, most of the companies that have AI, generative AI tools, when we're talking about AI in education, mainly we're talking about the AI generative, which means the model of the AI that we are using when we're using chatbots like that generate new content, text, music, images, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, DeepSeek, Mistral, which is European, and others. And most of these companies that train these generative AI models in the data, they actually are not very transparent about the data. We don't know exactly which types of data the models were trained in. So we can't expect, it's a surprise always if the information is correct, if not. So we need to be aware of this, because data can be so much. It can be all the information in the internet, all the opinions that were written in the internet. It can be all the books, not even the books. They're not all correct or incorrect. There are different types. So we need to understand that this also offers some limitations. Just here in the middle for you to understand a little bit quickly how the data and the model, the AI model works, the set of rules. So we have the data on one side, on the left side here, which is all the information that we were talking. I mean, all the information on the internet, all the books, all the research articles, let's imagine, all the pictures that humans created. Let's imagine we put that all together, we classify, catalog this data, humans do it, and then we choose a model. Let's keep in this idea of the generative AI models, which we are probably mostly using, but all of them have impact when we're talking about machine learning model. For example, when the algorithm chooses personalizes content in my Spotify and my Netflix and my YouTube. That's other type of AI and machine learning, and it also impacts our lives in education. But let's keep the example to generative. So if we have the data, we have the model, and we choose the generative AI model, together one feeds the other, right? The rules in the data, and we have an output, a value that's generated to us that usually comes out in the form of a new content through text or image or sound. But this has lots of challenges. We're not sure if the data is representative, if it's diverse, if it's mostly based on Western centric resources or information or data. If it's how diverse and how representative is it? So we don't know. And this may create imbalance when we're dealing with minority classes in the data. The consequences can be bias through incomplete, incorrect, and unequal data. And more beyond bias is the scale in which bias can be perpetuated is something that really we need to think critically about. And of course, the future challenges for AI in all AI solutions are mainly to have data with a focus on quality and diversity. We need to assure, we need to have more transparency as well and know which data and quality of data trained the different models that we are using in the different tools. So AI will be everywhere. It will be integrated in the different areas of our lives. We already have it when we drive someplace new we don't know, or we drive around the city we are living in just to manage traffic. The Google Maps or Waze uses machine learning to guide us through the map, through the city or through the place. We don't need to learn. So it really is something that also changes our behavior. Maybe we don't need to memorize beforehand the journey that we're going to make. Um, but these we need to consider as it impacts also always the ethical and legal considerations of these tools that have AI behind that impact our everyday. So we need to make a push as we're doing so in some countries, and the EU AI Act has been a rule of law that we are in Europe is being created to um, assure, guarantee that there is more balance in the innovation, in that there are more ethical concerns and safety concerns and guarantees in the AI solutions that are being created for our future, right? So this is a starting point for any AI literacy. And I would recommend for whomever is interested in deepening their questions and their knowledge around ethical thinking about for what it means to have biased data. I recommend Dr. Joy Boliani's work here with the book Unmasking AI. She also has a Netflix documentary, which is called Code Bias. I recommend. Joy Boliani shares her experience as an MIT PhD researcher and how she was able, through research, to identify that face recognition AI models were biased towards black face people with people of color and did not recognize people with black skin. So it had a bias towards race, and these models were actually already implemented in tools that were being used, for example, by police force and security. So this was already having a great impact in people's life. And through her research, in her very courageous, informed, and brave ability to share these research findings with the world, she was able to make a difference and have those companies at the time correct the AI model through more representative data, more balanced data, and therefore the outputs of the tools that she was researching about and identified the race bias, they became more correct and um, with less risk, let's say like this. So I also recommend the book from Kathy O'Neill. It's called Weapons of Math Destruction. It's actually Joy and Kathy O'Neill inspire each other very much, and they are researchers who entangle. They are very related in their work. Kathy O'Neill published this book before Joy Bellini, and she gives examples how big data is being used in different models before generative AI. Okay, so this was, I think, 2016. Um, how the data and unbalanced data impacts people in when they in their health insurance, when they ask the bank for a loan, in several other areas in their life. And she details practical case studies which are in science based, so backed up with studies that show and demonstrate how wrong this was and the impact that it had. I also recommend, if whoever's more connected to education, following this website from Neil Selwyn, a researcher that studies social ed tech, critical ed tech, and he shares their interviews with educators in their critical reflections about the impact that AI tools and generative AI is having on their performance as teachers and their daily lives, and also in their students' lives and in the pedagogical work. So through four points of knowledge. And AI literacy draws from all of this. We've talked here about the ethics, the about the data and the impact it has. We also need to involve and think about computer science, have algorithmic thinking. How is the algorithm also impacting my life in the outputs of what I'm using? Joy Boloini talks about this very much in her book, so I really incentivize you to read it. And it draws from media literacy. We need to have information literacy to be able to analyze the outputs that are shared with us. And of course, digital literacy, data science, and design thinking. It doesn't mean we need to be experts. We don't. It's just for you to have an overview of where, when we're talking about AI literacy, where it can draw from. Okay. But of course, we're talking about this abstract. Sometimes it seems very abstract thinking about AI literacy, but I've brought one practical example happening in a classroom from a teacher, actually a primary education teacher, for you to see how these things that we were talking about, the data and the ethical and critical thinking and consideration and the bias, how it can be put into practice, how this literacy can be brought to students. So after the teacher engages themselves in learning about this, how can they bring this to their classroom? And in this work, very inspiring, teacher Claudia Meirinhos, before even ChatGPT, so she did this in 2022 with her primary school students from age 7 to 10. And she did 2 lesson plans. The total were 3 hours, so 1 hour and a half each lesson plan. And for you to see in practice, she did one, which is the importance of training data sets in AI. So she challenged students to create data sets that would train an AI that they would build together as a class. So she gave she these lesson plans. She put students. She asked students to start thinking how a computer would think. So a human thinks in a way, and a computer thinks in another way. So she started bringing them to this mindset. A computer thinks differently, and she created simple training data exercises by creating. Here on the top you can see a picture of a cat and a dog. This is actually an activity that was also suggested by MIT Education, and she adapted to her classroom. So the students would see a picture of a dog and a cat, as you see here on the left, and they would need to classify the characteristics of each animal. So here on the left it's kind of easy, right? But then she challenges them. On the right, she shows two pictures again, a dog and a cat, but they're very similar. They're both white, they have very similar characteristics. So now the students are challenged to think deeper into the detail of classifying the characteristics of this animal. Because if the machine doesn't have every little detail, it may confuse, it may generate wrong outputs, incorrect outputs. So the students start learning how difficult it is and how challenging it is to create a simple training data set based on four images. Of course, as humans, we learn very fast. A 3-year-old child sees two, three dogs, and they understand for their future life very quickly how that other animals are dogs from the family of dogs or from the family of cats. But a machine needs millions of images of dogs, different types, and millions of images of cats before it can learn the difference. And even in trained in that way, it can make mistakes. And then teacher Claudia, after the students do this lesson plan and they learn the challenge of thinking like a machine, she brings and challenges them to use AI, to create with AI to help the environmental issues. So she went and picked up this activity from code.org, and she challenged students to think how AI would help save the oceans. And she explores how AI can collaborate with a human or a human use AI to co create solutions that solve problems for humanity. And so she also starts reflecting on the ethics of this training, of training these AI tools. Because one problem that may be very important for me to solve, maybe for another person, maybe another. How can this be influenced? So the rule is the goal of this lesson plan was for students to learn what humans can use AI for good, what is important to think about the future, and that we can use AI to solve human problems. So this is a very wonderful practical example. Had this output, which was this student which realized, and the teacher has this documented in her research, that student realized that if we program them, the robots, they don't have their own brain to think. So it was clear for a 7-10-year-old that a robot doesn't think. But it was also clear to another student that the humans who program the AI should be good people. And they should be careful not to put bad things in it, like racist comments and such. So, this is very impactful. AI literacy, informed practice, simple activities with the students, and a widened mindset for students. So, should we say yes or should we say no? Which are the skills that will help us with judging when we should or should not use AI? So, we were talking previously about the knowledge, this overall knowledge that we have, but we also need to engage in acquiring new skills in an AI literacy setting. So, I have this question. Is this task um, if this task requires empathy, ethics, or nuance, does this task require? So think with me. I bring two examples. One example, grading creative writing. So the AI might score grammar, structure, or length of a text, but it cannot understand originality, cultural nuances, tones, or voice, the personal voice of the student. What's the risk here? If we use AI for grading this, we have the risk of it conforming the creativity to certain patterns, right? That it was trained with. Will it open up the creativity um, uh, uh, references instead of closing the references and making creativity more conform to certain norms it was trained with? So a teacher needs to think about this. Um, but it can be useful if I ask the AI or if I use the AI to, for example, correct spelling, grammar around the text that I've written. Okay, so the second example, which is more ethical dilemma, if we need to create, if an educator wants to uh, decide on a disciplinary action, something happened, a student did something at the school or in the class, and we need to take disciplinary actions and make that decision. The AI could identify patterns, for example, in attendance of the student, behavior, and the logs that it has from the registrations of the teacher or the school. But should it decide on punishments or interventions for that student? Because we do have a very big risk here, right? Bias in the training data. What does it consider a risk? It does not know the context, the human, the family context of the student. It does not, maybe if it's for a man or a woman, the data may be biased, or if it's a white person, a black person, a minority or not, a Spanish or Indian or American. We don't know. And it's a very big risk to have these types of biases in the data, which will create unfairness, right? So we need to be very careful and critical as to when it's better to use AI. So it may be used, for example, to flag a certain situation, but then what we need to do is not have the tool judge be the final judge. Okay, so this means that if a task requires empathy, it requires the educator or the decision maker to consider ethics, or it has nuances, as any educational context has, then we should keep the human in the loop, right? We should never offload the decision or the task completely to AI. But we can only decide this if we have the knowledge before of all of how the model works, what is AI, what are the risks, the bias, the limitations. Okay, and this is a skill that we can train. So the skills we need are for understanding AI, which were the ones we've been talking until now. Judge the accuracy and the fairness of the AI outputs. We need to be aware that we need to do this always, but especially for contexts that need critical thinking, that have nuances, that need empathy, right? We also need to develop the computational thinking skill. Break problems into parts machines can process. Remember what teacher Claudia did with the students, 7 to 10-year-old students, with them looking at the picture of the cat and the dog and classifying the data, the pictures, the characteristics of those animals. They are learning how the machine thinks and what the machine needs to solve the problems, right? That's one very simple example. We also need to develop the skill of self and social awareness. How is AI influencing our emotions uh, and our identity in our society? When we're talking about the impact of the algorithm, when we're talking about how an output is generated, and if I believe it or not, we are talking about having awareness of how that will change me, right? In society around me. We've seen a conversation, a very hot topic conversation around uh, some social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, through their algorithms, curating content that is racist, misogynist, at many levels, and having a real impact in teens, in young people, for example. And we are seeing how do we know it's having impact in their minds and in their awareness and their understanding of the world? Because there have been more violent actions documented in the UK and in Australia, for example. There have been documented more violent actions from male students towards female students and female teachers. And that has been identified that this has come from social media content curated massively and in almost a brainwashing way to teenagers who are not aware of how the algorithm work. They do not have the literacy of the algorithm ways of working, right? So this is very critical and very important to train this skill in around conversations. And also the skill of ethical reasoning, which is means reflecting on when and whether to use AI at all. The examples you saw before, AI, should I allow AI to define um, a decision about whether a student is going to be expelled from school, right? No, we shouldn't. It's very nuanced. It's very critical that the impact as well. And we know that we do not have guarantee that the tool is not biased and it's not making wrong decisions. So it requires the human in the loop. And this is very important. These skills is about understanding AI. But we also need the skills. And when I say we as teachers and as learners of all age, because before a teacher can bring that to the classroom, we are learners as well. So we need the skills for working with AI. How can we collaborate with AI and expand ideas? It's a technology that's changing the world. I use it almost every day in my work. And I use it, for example, a lot to iterate through ideas, to unblock the creative process, because sometimes I have this idea of what it's going to be, and then I want to challenge myself to think in different directions. And I use the generative AI tools to help me and assist me with that process, right? As well, communication. We need to develop this skill very much. Explain how AI is used in a project or a process. The teacher needs to be able to communicate how it works every step of the way. And don't be nervous, even if you can't do that yet. You will keep continuing being informed and you learn as you go and you can communicate better each class, each day to your student. Don't worry, you don't need to know everything in one day and then to be able to start exploring AI. But you need to put this on top of the table, okay? That you need to start develop the skill of communication and also of problem solving. So working with AI and deciding when to bring AI to a task and putting asking your students to get involved in the decision and thinking in this process as well. Does AI help us here? Let's try. What did we learn? Did it help us? maybe not. Then we learn together. Then we move on to another task and we try again. And we have conversations and we decide when it helps us with problem solving better than in other times. And also develop the skill finally of collaboration. We need to work effectively with our human peers and our tools, our machine peers, right? To share tasks. So this collaboration between people is fundamental because if I work with all of you here today, I'm going to be able to see some things while we are working together with AI that probably Daria will see other things because she has different life experience, different cultural background, and as we collaborate, we empower ourselves to get the more rich results and the best out of the collaboration with a machine. And the same with a machine. When is it more effective for me to collaborate with this AI machine and which AI machine? Right? We can test several and understand which one serves us best for each task. I see someone has, I don't know if someone has a burning question, but I'll just show this example. And after this example, if it's a burning question, you can make it and I'll answer it quickly, okay? So just to put into practice, for you to see one example, one practical example of a teacher again in an AI, in a classroom that uses AI, and the skills, how to work about AI and how to work with AI that this teacher helped her students develop. So their students. So these are three teachers, Bárbara Cleito, Ana Franco, and Carla Alves. They're all from Portugal. And the previous school year, they asked their students to solve environmental problems in the region where they live. So the students had 10 lesson plans, so the 10 lessons, 2 hours each. They are vocational training students, so they're 15 to 18 years of age. And they were challenged to first know AI. They identified environmental problems within the region that they live. They, after identifying the environmental problem, they used the method of researchers, which was asking the first questions to try which questions can we ask that would help us understand better this environmental problem that we identified. So the students wrote down questions, several questions, and then they were taught how to use AI to collaborate with them to help them solve this solution. So they used ChatGPT and they asked the AI for help in answering their research questions and were guided by the teachers to ask the AI tool to give them references of where it had gotten the information from, so the students could go and verify the information. Of course, students identified some hallucinations, references that did not exist, other references that were not references of value, opinions, web pages of people that wrote about the same problem as them. And so the second step was, how can we deepen our research in resources that we know that are valid and credible? So students, together with the teachers, looked into books, library, talked with other teachers from different areas to refine their knowledge creation solution and their information search. So in this experience, students understood through practice how they could use the AI as a collaborator, but when it was not effective, and when it was effective to use the AI as a collaborator. And this is learning by practice was very impactful for students. They did afterwards, they had to organize their proposal for the environmental solution in a poster. And these posters were actually part of a big event. And these two won prizes, the top ones, Impacto Ambiental em Exposiente and the Cycling Improvement. They won prizes for their presentation and for their information and research-based approach. So this is very inspiring. And just to share with you two quotes from one of the teachers of this class and one of the students after this experience said, artificial intelligence will accelerate my research process and will unblock the creative processes. So for this student, this was a realization, an understanding. And for one of the teachers, she said, co-creating with AI tools consumes significant time, which exceeds the initial expectations of the students. So this was something registered in a research article that one of the teachers wrote. And so this experience impacted students and teachers in different dimensions. Okay. All right, the burning question. Do you think if the person wants to put it up, I have 5 minutes left to end my presentation. So I'll ask if it's really burning and we should answer now or if we answer afterwards. What do you think? Natalia, do you want to help me out?
Um, as you want, Marta, as you prefer, but maybe just after presentation, maybe
Yeah.
you'll
Okay.
finish the presentation.
Okay, Daniel, is it okay with you after the
Well, sure.
presentation?
I wanted to make a small break with a bit of conversation and raise a question, but if you think it would be better to complete the presentation and then take it forward, I'll be patient. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, it's absolutely up to you, really, as you want, as you prefer, Marta. And
I will leave it up to you. You're the lecturer, so I will leave it up to you. How would you
All
prefer?
right, Daniel. Then we'll keep them all together
Sure.
for the after the 5 minutes. Thanks for understanding. All right. All of this that I've been sharing with you. So from the AI literacy skills, from the knowledge, the skills, I've I've taken from the recent publication of this AI literacy framework that was published, if I think it was last week or a week and a half ago, with incredible partners. So I recommend you looking into this if you are an educator or not, if you're working in the education context. This framework was a joint effort created by professionals from the European Commission, the OECD, and also code.org, together also with Teach AI from the US, which shows the diverse partners in diverse regions of the world that are as well thinking about this. So we'll be looking into the attitudes that they also highlight in this framework, which brings us to the moment where we need to, when we're thinking about attitudes in the midst of the AI literacy, what it means, we're talking about using AI in the more impactful way dash the smartest way, right? What should I do in a certain moment? And sometimes we're balanced in the middle, right? We don't really know if we should or not. And if we look at the attitudes that are proposed within this framework, it might help us clarify uh, when to use it smartly or more impactfully. And these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attitudes that are brought to light in this framework that I like very much are responsibility, curiosity, innovativeness, being adaptable, and empathetic. Personal attitudes. Literacy is also about things we change, behaviors within ourselves and emotions around dealing with technology. And in responsible use of AI, we are talking about the educator also being aware and helping the learner, being responsible for the choices, being accountable, thinking about the unintended effects of their actions when using AI, and being aware if they are making the decision if they are committed to preventing harm to others. Okay, so responsible use of AI is when we believe that everyone has the right to understand how AI affects them and to make informed decisions about its use. And for this, we can't hide anything. We need to talk about deepfakes. We need to talk about how it identifies, helps us identify quicker images with cancer cells. Okay, but we need to use it responsibly. Being curious, having a curious mindset. Learners want to understand how AI affects their personal lives and future careers. And we should have conversations around this to keep an open mind. Be curious, ask questions, um, have an attitude of innovations. Learners can be challenged uh, to seek experiences, to challenge themselves, to think how they can use AI to address real world challenges, right? We can, and we see that all around us when in agriculture, in health, in fashion. We've seen so many applications that we need to have this attitude of how can I innovate and address real world challenges. But we need to be flexible, adaptable enters here. We can't have one fixed mindset, right? We need to open our minds to diverse ideas, educators as well, different perspectives, and different approaches. The practical approaches that I've showed you here before, you need maybe tomorrow they won't serve you. Maybe in 2 or 3 months, they will make sense for you and for you to use. So we need to adapt as well because tools and technology are evolving. They are gaining um, more they are becoming more correct. The data is better, more transparent or not. So we also need to adapt our approaches and we need to be empathetic. This is an important attitude. Examine how AI impacts our communities, myself or ourselves, in the environment. We talk a lot about the benefits and the risks of using AI and the impact for environment, how much it takes of energy and water to cool down the data centers, for example, and we need to develop this empathetic attitude. And um, one final thing I would like to share around this AI critical literacy and how we develop as educators to our learners. I bring this I love, which is the anatomy of a competence. It is also proposed in the AI literacy framework. I incentivize you to take a deeper look, and to develop all these competencies. They propose this anatomy, which is, for example, if we decide whether to use an AI system based on nature of the task, which is the skill that we are developing and that we need. Okay, we need to decide to use AI systems or not. So we have here the skills of problem solving, of computational thinking, right? Whether or not to use, should I not? The attitudes, be responsible, should I innovate? Is the cost of innovation impacting someone's lives or not? And also here, based on the nature of the task, the knowledge. Does A excels patterns of recognition, automation, ethical AI designs encompasses fairness and transparency, explainability. So what's the knowledge that you have around the system, that the decision that you are making? So to be competent in AI and making decisions with it, as an educator and as a learner, this anatomy of a competence and how it involves the skills and knowledge and attitudes are excellent examples that you can put into practice. So, final words, as teachers, educators, and decision makers in education, we do not need to be AI experts, but we do need to be informed and curious and have critical minds. So, our role is to serve as AI guides to our community of learners.